Last week, I was super honored to be at a great organization's event, a call to action. And it is an event for conservatives in our county, in Elkhart County. And they always have the best speakers, including Casey Hendrickson, and just lots of wonderful people to talk to and hear from. And someone that spoke was a gentleman who had been so many things, but sheriff also. And I was so impressed with his conversation, Brad Rogers. But lo and behold, sitting next to him at the table was his son, who is running for mayor of Goshen, Benjamin Rogers. Good morning, Ben. I'm so happy that you're coming on the show. I want everybody to meet you here because I had the good fortune to meet you last week, and I really enjoyed it.
Well, it was great meeting you as well, and thanks for having me on the air this morning. It's always good to be on 95.3, and I'm a big fan of the program. It's great to be on here.
Oh, thank you so much. Listen, I think it's wonderful that we have a conservative that's running against what seems to be traditionally people that just get rolled into the office of mayor in Goshen without even normal processing of actual voting. And so I'm happy that there's going to be an actual candidate on the conservative side for people to vote for in Goshen. And you're a lifelong, what do you call him, Goshegander? Somebody from
Goshenite, Goshen resident, something along those lines.
Very good. Yes, born and raised. Why don't you give us a little bit of your background? I know a lot of people know you, but maybe some are hearing you for the first time.
Yeah, it's been a wonderful process over these last several months as the Republican nominee here in Goshen. And that was one of the reasons I wanted to run for this position, among many, is to make sure that people had a choice at the ballot box. I think no matter who ends up winning this election, you're better as an elected official if you have to go through the electoral process. And that is one thing I really wanted to provide in this race, is that choice and is that contest at the polling place in November. And my background is I've been in and around city politics for a while now, around county politics, and I watch the rhythm of how the office operates, how the city and municipal governments operate. And one of the things that struck me when I was first approached about the possibility of being the Republican nominee for mayor of Goshen is that a lot of the issues that they are talking about today are issues that I remember being talked about when I was in high school, volunteering, going door to door for other candidates. And I realized that we're kind of stuck in a rut. And my aim as the next mayor of the city is not necessarily to come in and throw all the plates up in the air and watch them crash down again. I don't think Goshen responds well to someone that wants to be destructive. They want someone who's able to build. But at the same time, they want someone that's able to bring in fresh ideas, fresh leadership, and to look at the issues that we are facing, whether it's infrastructure issues or blight issues or housing availability. And they want someone that's able to come in and bring fresh eyes to that. And I'm really happy to be the candidate that's representing that, and the candidate that's representing a change possibly from 30-plus years of single-party administration.
Benjamin Rogers on the Newsline with us here on Michiana's Morning News. And it's Halloween today, but a week from today, Ben, it will be Election Day. So as far as these fresh ideas you have, what is the top of your priority list if you are elected mayor of Goshen?
Yeah, it's almost like, where do you start? But a few that always come up in conversation amongst people is housing availability, housing affordability. It's estimated that we are at least 10 years behind the curve when it comes to housing development in Goshen, maybe more at this point. And a lot of that goes back to business friendliness, developer friendliness, making sure it's easy for developers and business owners to get started in Goshen. Whether it's true or not, Goshen has a perception sometimes for not being the easiest place to get projects moving in. And whether it's true or not, perception often becomes reality. So I want to go in and reset that tone, reset those policies to make sure that it's as easy as possible for entrepreneurs and developers to come in and help grow our city. Because if we're not growing, we're going backwards. There's been a lot of concern in some areas of the city regarding blight. There's neighborhoods where it's really sad when you go through and you realize that it's up to the city to come in and make sure that those codes are enforced, to make sure that those neighbors are have neighborhoods that are cleaned up and presentable so they can raise their families in. And then also infrastructure. There's been a lot of concern about our pedestrian infrastructure. A lot of sidewalks are crumbling. There's been a lot of concern about our roadway infrastructure. At the same time, you have to balance that out with new quality of life improvements. And I think that's where a lot of public-private partnerships can come together to help grow the city together. We can work on this as a team. This doesn't have to be, well, the government has to come in and do everything. You have to be able to create a collaborative environment where people feel the freedom to develop and grow their lives in the city. And that's one of the attitudes I want to bring to this. And I think that message, that freedom message, that message of fresh leadership is being really taken to heart by voters here in the city this go around.
Benjamin, I think a lot of people love going to Goshen for its really quaint, beautiful, historical references in all of most of the buildings downtown and everything. They've really been lovingly restored and refurbished, and it creates such a great atmosphere. There's a lot of cultural things that seem to be happening. They're good restaurants. This is all part and parcel of, keeping going what's there. Do you have on that side of things, in just kind of, making Goshen a must stop on anyone's tour of Northern Indiana, what are some of the things that you would like to see in Goshen?
Yeah, Goshen downtown area and Goshen in general has a great reputation for tourism, has a great reputation for being a destination, and a lot of credit to the downtown businesses, a lot of credit to the Chamber of Commerce for really spearheading a lot of that development. And I think where the city can come in as a government entity is to make sure that, for example, when festivals want to have, festivals downtown, that we are able to provide some of that infrastructure and some of that support for those festivals. When it comes to infrastructure as well, when it comes to there's some areas downtown that probably need the sidewalks replaced, and there's some additional infrastructure that businesses can't necessarily provide. But that's where the government can come in and help create that base that allows the private sector to then flourish on top of it. And I think also creating an environment where it's encouraged. A lot of it comes down to perception. A lot of it comes down to not necessarily emotion, but how people feel they will be perceived if they start a business in Goshen, if they get something going. And we want to make that process as easy as possible and encourage. I want a small business owner who's looking to start a shop downtown to come into the city departments and get a response of, how do we help you grow your business and grow your opportunity so that we can continue the flourishing of the downtown, to continue the flourishing of the city. And a lot of that emotion, a lot of that mentality and vision starts from the mayor's office. And I'm really energetic about that, and I'm really looking forward to continuing to push that throughout the city. All
right. Now, I mentioned that it's 1 week until Election Day, and I want to talk about an issue that I think is as equally as important as some of the issues you're bringing up right now, and that is simply, Benjamin, getting people out to the polls on Election Day, because this is not one of those big sexy elections where, we're going to vote for a president or some of these major races. But there's a lot of municipal races, a lot of races here at home like yours that are as equally important. And, in an area where sometimes where it's, what they call an off election year, you have very light voter turnout. What is your message to get people out to the polls and cast their vote, whether for you or for whoever?
Yeah, as the new Republican nominee, coming into this, one of the first things that I did was I started looking through numbers. I'm pretty analytical when it comes to things like that. And one of the numbers I took away is Goshen's about 35,000 people. And then you have about 20,000, little under 20,000 registered voters. 8 years ago, we had a very competitive mayoral race in the city. Under 6,000 voters voted in that election. Turnout typically is quite low in Goshen during an off-year election. And that means your vote matters more than ever, because when you go in and vote for the president, especially here in Indiana, you can kind of look at it like, yeah, I need to do it. It's my civic duty. Is it really going to matter? But I can tell you that in a local and a municipal race, that's where your vote matters and carries extra weight. 4 years ago, in one of the city council districts, that election was decided by 2 votes, and that decided control of the Goshen City Council. And if the Republicans hadn't have turned out those extra 2 voters, we would have lost control of the City Council in Goshen. So if you're looking at an election to get involved in, if you're looking at a race to get involved in, local city elections, local county elections, that's where you can make the biggest impact. And whether you're in Elkhart, Goshen, Wakarusa, Napanee, Bristol, this is the time to get out and vote. Because if you want to make a real difference in your community, it has to start in your own backyard. And simply by pure statistic, this is the time to make a difference in a city election.
Absolutely, Benjamin. It's, we, as you were saying, you vote in the presidency because your civic duty, and plus, it's, a nationwide thing. It really is critical. But so are the local elections and who we vote for. It really comes down to value system and also being able to get things done and not just being, just constantly more of the same, more of the same. We want fresh eyes in there, like you said, I think. And I really enjoyed meeting you at the dinner last week. You are somebody that's very buttoned up, very professional, very well spoken. You come from a legacy of servants of the community. Your dad, Brad Rogers, with all that he has done over the many years. What a legacy. And I know you've learned from the best. You were a Boy Scout, weren't you?
Yep, I was in scouting for a number of years as a youth, and now I'm an assistant scoutmaster with the New Paris Boy Scouts, Troop 12 out of New Paris. So I continue in scouting as a scouter, and that's one thing I really value is being able to help youth grow in their leadership capacity. Because I remember one of the first leadership roles I was able to take on as a kid was in scouting, and I remember how much of an impact that had on me. So I'm a big proponent of youth leadership programs like scouting, and that's one of the reasons I continue to stay involved with that.
Well, we're so grateful that you came on and spent some time with us today and have our listeners hear from you directly from your own heart and mind and mouth about what you plan to do. And just a big, huge reminder, it makes a difference when you vote and when you don't. So by all means, thank you so much, Benjamin Rogers, and best of luck to you next week, 1 week from today, when everyone heads to the polls. Please, everybody, do your part. It does make a difference.
100%. Thank you for having me on. November 7th, 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. Is Election Day. So look forward to seeing everybody out at the polls, and thank you for having me on today.
All right. Thank you, Benjamin Rogers. And you can learn more about his campaign at rogersforgoshen.com.
Podcasts by Federated Media.